Components are the building blocks of every great design system. In this crash course, you'll master how to create and manage components in Figma and how to use component properties and variants to design smarter and faster, especially for large-scale projects. Let's dive in. What are components? In simple words, components are reusable design elements that act like templates for things you use often, such as buttons, sliders, cards, etc. Now that you know what components are, let's quickly create one. Here, as you can see, I already placed a few icons that we are going to need in a few minutes. But first, let's create a simple button. I'm going to hit T on my keyboard to select the text tool, and I'm just going to create a text layer. Now let's type button, just like that. And then I'm going to add auto layout to it. So while it's selected, I'm going to hit Shift and A to add an auto layout frame, just like this. And let's just rename it to button. Okay. Then I'm going to add a fill to it to have a background color as well. And let's just change the color to something like this. Okay, nice. Then I'm going to change the padding. Let's set the horizontal padding to 12. And we are going to leave the vertical padding as is. Nice. Then let's just make it a bit rounded. So I'm just going to increase the corner radius amount to 8, just like that. And our button is ready. Now let's imagine you want to use this button many times across your project, right? For example, if I just create a few iPhone frames, I'm going to create a few iPhone 16 frames here, just like that. And let's say we want to use this button on every single one of these frames. So I'm just going to duplicate it and I'm just going to place it inside, just like that. It's a bit tiny, so we can just hit K and scale it up for now. And then duplicate it once again, like that. And duplicate it once again, just like this, okay? And for some reason, you decide to make a change. For example, you decide to change its label or its color, its corner radius, etc. In that case, what you can do is just go ahead and select them one by one, or just select them all and make the change. However, it's not an efficient way because it's going to take us so much time to make the change one by one. That's why we need to use components so that we could make the change once and the change will apply to all the copies of that component simultaneously. Let me show you how it works. I'm just going to remove these buttons and I'm going to select this button that we just created and let's turn it into a component. To turn it into a component, you can just head over to the design panel right here. And as you can see here, we have this 4 diamond icon, right? If you hover over it, it says create component. I'm just going to left click. And as soon as I do that, this frame's boundary turns purple, which indicates that now this is a component. Whenever you see this purple color in your layers list, you can quickly realize that this is either a master component or an instance of a component. So what's the difference? Well, here we have the master component, which means this is the main component, right? Now, if we want to reuse this component, we can either head over to the assets panel right here. And here, as you can see, we have created in this file. If I just click on it, you see that we have this button component and you can just simply drag and drop it to create a copy of it. Or let's say to create an instance of our main component. And if I head back to the layers list, you see that here we have this instance. This diamond icon indicates that this is an instance of a component. And this 4 diamond icon indicates that this is a master component. An instance is basically a duplication of a master component. And they have a parent-child relationship. What do I mean by that? It means that this button, this master component, is the parent of this child. So if I want to make a change to this instance, I can just change the master component and the change will be applied to this child as well. So now let me just duplicate this instance and bring it here as well. By the way, if you want to create an instance of a component, you can also select the master component and just duplicate it. And you will create an instance of a component. So now we have these 3 buttons like that. And let's say we want to make it red. In that case, we can just select the master component, head over to the field property, and just change its color just like that. And now, as you can see, all these instances have been changed as well because they are all linked to this master component. What about the corner radius? Let's say you want to make it completely rounded. While this master component is selected, you can head over to the appearance property and just increase the corner radius property as well. If you want to change its label, you can do that too. You can simply select the label and just change it to something else. Maybe get it started. You see how easy it is to work with components? They are so useful when we want to create a consistent design system and save so much time when designing a large scale project. So that's basically how you can create a component and make a copy of it. But sometimes for some reason, you might need to make a change to an individual instance of a component. You can do that. If you want to make a change to a particular instance of a component, you can simply select that instance and just change it. For example, let's say we want to make this button a bit brighter. In that case, we can just change its color just like this. And as you can see, the other buttons are intact. Why? Because we just made the change to that instance. However, you need to keep in mind that by doing that, you'll unlink this field property from this master component. So if I select this master component now and I just change its field property, look what happens. You see, all these instances are changed because we already made a change to this instance, but the other properties are still linked to this instance. Let me just change the corner radius, for instance. You see that? Everything works as expected. So that's basically how you can make a change to an individual instance of a component. But what if you want to unlink an instance from the master component completely? In that case, you can just select it, head over to the design panel, and here I'm going to click on this icon, more actions, and you can click on detach instance. Just like that, you see that it's no longer purple, indicating that it's a normal layer, and it's no longer a component or an instance of a component. Alternatively, you can just right click on it and click on detach instance. And now this button is no longer linked to this master component. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to tell you about a tool that's been an absolute game changer in my design process, Mobbin. Mobbin is an extensive design reference library featuring over 500,000 screens from more than 1,200 top-tier iOS, Android, and web apps. It's an incredible resource for finding real-world design inspiration, doing competitor research, and staying up to date with the latest UI/UX design trends. Need to design a login screen? Just search login in Mobbin and you'll instantly find tons of examples from top apps. Want to design a drop-down component but don't want to start from scratch? Search dropdown and see how the best digital products handle it. You can also explore complete user flows like onboarding, checkout, or sign-up processes, all laid out clearly so you can see how big brands approach similar design challenges. And the best part, you can copy and paste flows directly into your Figma files using Mobbin's Figma plugin. If you want to save hours searching for design inspiration and references, check out Mobbin. I think you'll love it. Now back to Figma components. Alright, now that you know how you can create a component and how you can make a copy of it, let's get into more advanced details, such as component properties. So I'm just going to hit Command Z or Control Z to undo the operations, like that. And let me zoom in a bit. If I select this master component and I head over to the design panel, you'll see that we have this option, properties. And if I click on this plus icon, you'll see that we have 4 different options. We have variant, text, boolean, and instance swap. These are the 4 types of properties you can add to your components. So let's go through them one by one and see how they work. Imagine you designed a component, but you also want to have a different variant, or let's say a different version of this button. Maybe you want to create different states of a button, or maybe you want to create a smaller version of this button. In that case, you can create a component set with different variants inside. So let me show you how it works. While this master component is selected, I can just add a variant to it. And as soon as I do that, this boundary appears. You see that? This is called a component set. And inside this component set, we can add different variants. To create a variant, you have 2 ways. You can either select this default variant inside and just duplicate it, hit Ctrl D or Command D, just like that. And as you can see now, inside this button component set, we have 2 variants, default and variant 2. Or you can just click on this plus icon here. Let me just make this component set a bit bigger, and I'm going to select this variant and just hit this plus icon to add a new variant. Now what we can do is while this button is selected, we can just head over to the field property and just change its color to create a different state of this button. Maybe make it a bit darker, just like that. And now if I select an instance of this button, maybe this one, you can see that on the right side, we have this property 1, and this property 1 has different values. If I just open up this drop-down menu, you'll see that we have this default version and this variant 2 version. However, these names don't make any sense, right? Property 1, it's so confusing. So what we can do is just select this component set, and here you'll see all the properties added to this component set. We can just click here to rename this property and just call it state. So now we have the state property. And if I select each variant, you'll see that we have this state property and we have the value as well. The default one is fine. I'm going to leave it as is. However, I'm going to select this one and just rename this value. Here it says variant 2, which doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to change it to hover, just like that. And now if I select this instance of this button, you can see that we have the state property and we can easily switch between these different states. Hover, default, just like that. When it comes to variants, we can create one-dimensional or multi-dimensional variants. If you want to learn more about variants, make sure to check out the dedicated video about variants on my channel. All right, now let's move on to the next component property here. Here we have the text property as well, which allows you to modify the text of each instance dynamically. Let me show you how you can modify the label of this button. To modify the text here, what you can do is just select this label, just like that, and just change it, right? That's one way, but the better way is by creating a text property. So here, I'm gonna select this component set, and I'm just gonna add a text property to it, and I'm just gonna call it label. As for the value, I'm just gonna have a default value. So let's type button, and I'm gonna create this property. However, nothing happened because this property that we just created is not linked to any of the elements inside this button, right? And if I just hover over this icon here, it says not used within component. And that's true. So what we should do is select this text layer. Then I'm just going to hold down the shift key as well and select both of them. And here at the top, we have this field, right? It says get started. We can just rename it, or we can just click on this icon, which says apply variable or property. We are not going to talk about variables in this video. So here, I'm just going to click on it and you will see all the properties that can be linked to this element, this text element. And we are going to link it to label. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that the label changed to the default value we set for this label property. And here all the instances changed as well. But now if you want to change the label of this button, we can simply select this instance and you will see under these properties, we now have this label property as well, and we can easily change it. You see how easy it is to make a change now? It's especially useful when you have many instances and you want to change their label simultaneously. So if I just make a copy of this button, maybe a few copies, and I want to change their label all at once, I can just select all these instances. And since we have this label property, we can simply change it to whatever we like, maybe home. Just like that. So that's how the text property works. Now let's move on to the next component property, which is Boolean. Well, the Boolean property allows you to define true and false values to your elements. What does it mean? Let's say you design this button and your button has an icon and you want to have a property to let you hide or unhide that icon. In that case, you can use this Boolean property. Let me show you how it works. Here I'm going to show you another feature of components. As you can see, I've already placed these three icons. We have home, share, and download, okay? But they are not components yet. If you want to turn them into components, we can either select them one by one and just click on this icon, or we can just select them all and just open up this drop-down menu. And from here, we can just click create multiple components, just like that. But when I do that, I don't create a specific category for our icons. If you want to create a category for your components, what you can do is change their name. Here, I'm just going to rename this first one to icon / home, which means that now we are creating this icon category, and under this icon category, we'll have this home icon. I'll show you why it matters in a minute. So I'm just going to rename it quickly, one by one, just like that. And now I'm going to select them all and just turn them into components. Okay. Now, if I head over to assets, here you'll see all your components, but you can also click on this icon and just enable show subfolders. In this way, you can see your component categories, for example, icons, and inside you have download, home, and share, just like that. Okay. All right. Now we have these components. Okay. And we can use an instance of these components inside our button components, which is called nesting components. So let's just duplicate this home icon. I'm going to hit Control D or Command D to create an instance of it. And I'm just going to cut it, hit Control X or Command X. And let's just select these two variants and paste it inside. So now all our buttons have this icon. Okay, we can just change the padding a bit, maybe to 4, like this. But how can we hide this icon? We don't have a specific property here. Well, we can just select our button component set and just add a Boolean property here. And I'm going to name it has icon. And the value by default is true, which means that our buttons by default have an icon. So I'm just going to create this property, but we still see no property here. That's because we haven't linked this new property to any of our elements. Since we want to hide our icon, we are going to select these two icons and we are going to head over to the appearance property and just click on this icon. And then I'm going to link it to has icon. And now if you select one of these instances, you'll see that we have this new property and it lets us hide or unhide the icon from our button. It's so cool, isn't it? All right, what's next? The next property we're going to discuss is called instance swap. So what does it do? Let's say you have this button, okay? And you want to change its icon. How can you do that? Well, to do that, you can just select this icon inside this instance. And from here, you can just change the instance. It says swap instance, and I can change it to share. However, wouldn't it be better if we could just change the icon here right below all these properties? Yes, it would, right? So what we can do is select this component set and just add an instance swap property. I'm going to name it icon, and the value is going to be icons. I'm going to select one of these icons, maybe home. And here we have something called preferred values. We'll get back to it in a moment, but for now, let's just create this property. And then I'm going to select these icons. And right here, I'm going to click on this icon and just link this swap instance property to the icon property that we just created, like that. And now if we select any of these instances, we'll have this swap instance property as well. And we can quickly swap instances of our icons. That's awesome, isn't it? But what was that preferred value option? Well, here I'm going to select this component set and I'm just going to click on icon. Let's say you have a library of 200 different icons. But when you create this component, you know that you want to use only 10 of those icons. In that case, you can simply add preferred values here. For example, in this case, I'm just going to choose download and share. Okay. And then if I select any of these instances and try to change the icon, you see that here by default, I see only the preferred values I specified before. However, it doesn't mean that you cannot use all of your icons. If you want to use other icons, you can simply change it to created in this file and go to icons. And from here, you can choose any of the icons you'd like. So that's basically how components work in Figma. If you're new to UI UX design and looking for a clear roadmap to kickstart your design journey this year, you can check out this video. Thanks for watching this video, and if you found it helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more design tutorials. Have a beautiful day and see you soon.